Publishing goes in cycles, following the preference of readers and the changing economics of the industry. Once upon a time, the singular novel hit the shelves, but the winds have shifted, and many prefer series with at least some connection between the installments. How does a writer determine how far their story will? How do you entice readers to give your story or series a try if they prefer a different length? Does genre matter? What is the best option for an indie author? Then, Joining Now's CL Cannon brings us a selection of books that you may like if you're a fan of the Very Secret Society of Irregular Riches by Sangu Mandana. Then, we help keep you current. Fantastic programming coming your way this week on our Go Indie Minute. Finally, we dig deep into multiple choice literary goodness with our epilogue. Now, prepare to decide if your memoirs are going to be 1 book or 10. Get ready to defend your answer. It's time for another fine episode of This Week in Indies with your host, SM Hillman.
Good Sunday, everyone. I hope that you are feeling well and doing well and everything out there in Go Indie Land. I'm your host, SM Hillman, and today we're going to be talking about standalone fiction versus series. And that could be novellas or novelettes, I guess, but primarily, obviously, we're talking about novels. But enough of me. Let's go ahead and get introduced to our great panel this morning, or this afternoon now. We'll start off with AJ Milliken. AJ?
Hi, I'm AJ. I write romance, paranormal romance, contemporary romance, sci-fi romance. You get 2 or more people going at it, you got me there. You can find me at ajmilliken.com up there. And yeah, I write smut.
Excellent. JD?
Greetings, fellow humans. I'm an indie author from Puerto Rico. I write a lot of genres. I have 22 books out, which cover from poetry to middle grade to urban fantasy and a partridge in a pear tree. I don't get bored. We'll be talking about the standalones and the series later. And I have thoughts. Anyways, cheers.
Thank you so much. Lily?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Lucchesi. I'm a USA Today bestselling author of urban fantasy and paranormal mysteries. And I also write sweet and small town romance as Samantha Calcott and dark and smutty romance as S.L. Sinclair. I also am the founder and editor at Partners in Crime Book Services.
Excellent. Thanks for being here with us. And last but not least at all, Daniel.
Sure you're not least, or I'm not least. My name's Dan Myers. I writing a series called The Knight's Trials, and I have opinions as well, and me and JD can go at it potentially. But yeah, so you can find me at www.wyvernsairy.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we're going to start off with this one, just a little bit of a interrogative. Oops, that's not it. We're going to start with Lily. What is your preference as a writer, and what is your preference as a reader? And are they different? Why are they different if they are?
My preference as a writer is series. I do have some standalones, but even my standalones connect to my main series. I started out thinking I was going to write a standalone when I was writing Stakeout in 2014, and then the characters decided, no, we want a series. So it went from 1 book to 3 books to 5 books. It ended in 8 books. 3 standalone spinoffs, and my other 2 series are also connected to that series. So even when I don't want to write a series, I wind up writing one because the story just keeps blooming. But as a reader, I'm an equal opportunity. I think it depends on the genre. I like YA series. I like paranormal series. When it comes to horror, I prefer standalones, but I'm an equal opportunity reader, more so than I am a writer.
Gotcha. So I'm going to circle back to the connections aspect a little later, but for you, how important is it, or is it important as a writer, that these stories take place in a specific world, right? Because a lot of your writing takes place in these different worlds, but they're all connected. All the stories within are connected, right?
Right. They're all somehow connected. You don't have to read. You could read the Paranormal Detective series, but not read the Coven series, or you could not read either and read the Paige Papillon series. You can read them all alone, but they're all connected in one world, all connected by Angelica Cross, who is my main character. And for me, I always set out wanting to do that. That was a dream for me, based off Stephen King's Dark Tower. Everything leads back to that and all of his work. So I always wanted to do it. I never thought that I could, and I surprised myself.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. Wow.
Words.
I know words are hard, right?
We're writers, not speakers.
That's true. GG?
Okay, I said I had some thoughts, and then I have positive thoughts across the board. So what do I prefer? I like to write series in terms of writing it, in terms of promoting it, and in terms of selling it. Lord, that middle child syndrome. I have a trilogy, the human cycle, and just pushing for the second and third. It is a war of attrition to get people commit to the first one, they love it, and then they don't read the second and the third, and it's like, I wrote the thing. And I got harassed for years to finish the series, and I'm like, I finally finished it. Okay, I'll read it eventually. I'm like, so, but in terms of enjoyment, I just love to write, and that's why I write across so many genres. The title that we have here is Given to Fly. Given to Fly is a standalone, and there will be more books set in this world, but they are independent stories. And it's just a different flex. It's just a different way to approach a story. With a series, what's fun is also what's worrying, in the sense that you want to make sure that if there's a plot hole or something that's unresolved, that you're aware of it, that you want to leave it unresolved, and that no one is going to mind too much, or they're just going to ask. It's like, I want this answer. Give us more of that story. So for me, not plot holes, but unresolved things are an opportunity. And it's like leaving a door open for a series. I left a couple of doors open in the human cycle for different ways that I can branch it off. I don't know if it's going to be as intense and as extensive as Lily's, but she gives me ideas, so that's great. But I love both. As a reader, I love both. And if it's a good book, it's a good book. It could be nonfiction, and I'm going to have fun. It could be a series, and I'm going to have fun. It could be whatever genre, and I'm going to have fun if it's good.
Awesome. Thank you. Did you start off writing with the idea that you were going to write series? Or was that like the goal from the beginning?
Well, the human cycle was going to be 4 books. And as I'm writing it, I was like, this is going to be a trilogy. And I know that's kind of a cliche, but it just the more I thought about it, it made sense. And I did start off with that. And then just side projects are either short stories or standalones and stuff like that. It's as long as I'm writing, I'm happy. And sometimes you need to take a break from something that's a little bit too intense. That I took so long to finish the series is why I have the issues that I have. And it's something that I would plan out, and I would just work differently in the future. Meaning that if the next series that I'm going to write, because I'm already drafting outlines and whatnot, I'll probably have a couple of books already written before I start to publish and promote. And then so that there's a reasonable amount of time and not years upon years of people waiting and harassing me.
Right. Understood. Thank you so much. Dan, what about you? How do you feel as a reader and a writer about series or standalones?
I'm kind of like JD there, unfortunately. I like to read both. When I write, I was kind of, as I was practicing the craft, if you want, I was writing standalone short stories. They were also kind of based in my world, and a lot of them were like backstories for some of the characters in my books. And that was mainly practice. I think with a standalone book, it's actually more difficult than writing a series, because you have to be very specific unless you want, an 800-page book. You can't have a bunch of side stories and side plots, and you're limited in the amount of world building that you can do because you've got just, a fantasy book, 120,000 words to get your story and world building and everything in. Where with a series, you can kind of stretch out that world building. You can have some more complex tie-ins with some of your plots or tropes or whatever you're going to put in there, and take more time and be a little more patient developing them. So from a writing standpoint, I definitely like the series. From a reading standpoint, I don't have a lot of preference. As JT said, a good story is a good story is a good story, whatever form it takes.
Absolutely. So do you have plans for any standalone with the world you're building at the moment, or? I
actually do. And right now, a friend of mine and I are working on a anthology of stories from my world. And I also have an idea for kind of related, but really not following the series for the, I won't say wraps up the story, but it brings another conclusion to the stories that I'm working on now.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. AJ, what about you?
As a reader, I definitely enjoy series. I like being able to follow book to book to book and see how the characters progress and how everything kind of grows for the characters in a more broad sense than you get from a standalone. I prefer writing standalones, but I have a very extensive series. My Nowhere books are like almost 11 books long at this point, although it's interconnected standalones for the most part with 2 trilogies in the middle of it. I kind of mix everything together. I think series work well when they're completed as a writer, but when they are in the midst, like JD said, it's very hard to market and get people to buy it because people want everything now these days. They don't want to wait till you're done working on the series.
I guess I'm either I'm very old or go ahead, JD.
No, I do have a comment on that. How many of you guys had the, what's this book? Oh, it's the second book in the series. How many books is it going to be? It's going to be 3. Okay, I'll buy them when you finish.
Yeah.
It's like facepalm.
I'm that way now because after Jordan, Wheel of Time series, one, it is like over 20 years, whatever. And then he dies. And then you got the George R.R. Martin, which is probably going to be finished by Sanderson as well. I vowed I will not buy a series I won't buy any books in a series until it's complete from now on, because that is really frustrating and annoying as a reader of having to wait 10 years for a book. Then you feel like you have to go back and read everything up to that point when it's taking years and years. And I mean, 2 years between books is one thing, but 10 years is too long.
No, I took between Only Human and Shadow of a Human, I took 2 years. And from Shadow of a Human to Beyond Human, I took 8 years.
That's too long.
But life is life, and life was intense.
Yeah. And I think we're spoiled too. I know I am, in that, I grew up reading Tolkien. Well, those were written in the 50s. They were done. I grew up reading C.S. Lewis, same thing. And even like Anne McCaffrey, I mean, she was putting out a book a year. Elizabeth Moon. I mean, they were just really putting out their work very quickly. Whereas now I think it seems that writers the books are longer and the time between them is longer.
Yeah, that's for sure. Although I guess I'm a throwback. If I find a book that I like, oh, this looks cool, and then I learn that it's a series that's already complete, I'm like, oh, right, because I want to read them as they go, and then I find out, very quickly that they're not, because it's already done. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll still read it, but I prefer to read my series as they come out, if at all possible. All right, so let's go ahead real quick.
I take the Netflix approach, and I just want to binge it. And I think in terms of being spoiled, streaming in TV and streaming in music and streaming in everything has made things so convenient that it has spoiled everyone, and everyone wants everything immediately, and that brings factors into the equation like AI. Oh, it'll help speed up your process, and it's like, is it better though? Is it better though? Well, it's quicker. And it's like, that's not the question. You're going to be more productive. And I'm like, that's not the question. The question is it better?
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's grab some comments before we get to our next question. JD, hello, JD, breaking football. AF Stewart, hello, Anita. Good to see you again. Miss Elishafol, thank you as always for being here. And I think I got that right quickly this time. Vanessa, hello, Vanessa, the lovely Vanessa Junta, who's with us a lot. And JD says, hi to Anita, Alicia, and Vanessa, saying hi to everybody. And then, if you have questions, comments, stuff to share, please reach out. Absolutely. We're always happy to engage with our audience.
I feel like JD should be hosting his own show sometimes when I'm on these with him.
I know, right? It's the JD show.
No.
No.
But I always have questions.
Yes. No, JD's a fantastic guest for that purpose. So I want to go ahead and tap on a couple things here for the next question. And AJ, we'll start with you. But where in your writing process do you find that you make the decision about standalone versus series? Do you get a series idea, or do you just get an idea then it becomes a series?
Yes. It depends on the story. My Abnormal series, I knew from the start that was going to be a series. I ended up not finishing it because people were having to wait a long time. No one was buying the books because they wanted to wait till it was complete. My Nowhere books was just going to be one little trilogy, and then it moved into 2 trilogies because when I finished the first one, the epilogue told me, no, you're going to write more. Then it turned into a bunch of standalones. My Zelenite Mate series was always going to be a trilogy. My Summer City Hair duet was going to be a standalone, and then long story short, I got talked into writing the prequel because I already tied up all the loose ends in the first book because I was done. So now it's this duet that you can kind of read in either order because I wrote the prequel before or after I wrote the main story, so they're kind of, you can swap them back and forth, and it's not going to really mess you up too bad to read the second one first because the second one was written first.
Gotcha. So have you ever had, working on something, and this is for everyone too, obviously we've all started a book, yes, including me, that's like, no, this needs to be a series, but have you ever started on a series idea thing, and then, like, I think JD's 4 books became 3, where you're like, no, I need to pare this back?
I haven't yet come across that. Excuse me.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much.
Speaking of complaints about pollen.
Yes, complaints about the pollen. Pollen is killing all of us. Dan, what about you?
I'm a real big plotter. So I know what if my book's going to be standalone or series before I start writing. Before I even start drawing out plot and subplots and anything else. So What was the second question?
Have you ever started just one book? It's like, no, this could be a series. I think that's fairly common. But have you ever started on like a series idea and thought, no, this needs to be one or at most two books, that kind of thing?
No. As I said, I have the whole thing outlined, and then I'm pretty disciplined about staying in my storylines within my plots. So that hasn't happened to me yet, but I'm only 2 books in. I'm not as prolific as the other esteemed members of the panel.
No problem. JD?
I can tell you what happened in my process. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of quirks, and if you know me and we've had a conversation, you know that I'm a quirky bastard.
That's what we like about you.
So I wanted it to be 4 books because I do have a fixation with the number 4. It's in across the board. So it's I grew up in a 4th floor in a building, and it's just been. I even had employee numbers and extension numbers that were like 2244 or 44. Or, I forget the number. It was 446 something. But it just came to me. I'm not a big casino guy, and the only time that I've won money was betting on 4, and I got like $360, which is also easily divisible by 4, and stuff like that. And I was just fixated on that. So the first book has 44 chapters. The second book has 44 chapters. The third book, I had to break with it just because my writing style has evolved, and because I let go of the notion and the obsession with the number 4, because this is not a numerology book. This is not about numbers, etc. And I had to serve the story and its purpose. And the way that I explored it is that the first book, it's my exploration of humanity through fiction. So the first book focuses on the body aspect. The second one focuses on the mind and the psychology, and the third one focuses on soul. A fourth one would be just me dicking around. And anything that's done to dick around or because you're fixated on something that doesn't serve a purpose should be scrapped. And you should just serve the purpose of the story. And I realized that it would work best as a trilogy, even though it's a 3-act structure and whatnot, even though it's a cliche. And I was freaking out for the longest time because I was like, I really hope I nail the landing. I really hope I nail the landing. I really hope I nail the landing. It's just something that you obsess with the ending, and it's daunting, and it was terrifying. And after I finished it, I just couldn't shake it and let go. And then I started to read other series, which brought me peace of mind. And some series, Lord of the Rings is actually 6 books. It's marketed as 3 books, but it's 6 books. And it's got a continuous flow, and it's fantastic, and it's wonderful. You mentioned C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of the Narnia. There's a lot of hit and miss in Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is fantastic. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader is fantastic. The Silver Chair is fantastic. And then you have a mix and match, and you have some that are okay and some that absolutely suck. The last book in the Narnia series, whereas The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe does have Christian allegory, and it does sometimes lean hard into it, it's done so in a way that I think works, and I think it serves the purpose of the story. And the last book, The Final Battle, I think it's called, is so preachy that if your intention was to convey a message of Christianity or whatnot, you're going to tune a lot of people off just because it was very heavy-handed. And then you have other series that just missed it. The first book is sensational, and then they just absolutely missed the mark, so on and so forth. So that's the process for the human cycle. In terms of other stories, I do have a middle grade short story collection called The Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. The first book, the stories are kind of short. People enjoyed it and they wanted more. The second volume, it's Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore 2. I didn't get creative with the title, and I think that bit me in the ass. But the stories are like 15, 20 pages. They're chunky. And it hasn't sold that well, and it's a shame because I do think that some of my best writing in middle grade are in those short stories. And it's just, I don't know if I communicate that insecurity so much that it just blocks people from accessing those stories. Who knows? I do think that some of my best writing in middle grade is there. So I've decided from short stories that got longer, from here on out, the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore, they're going to be novels, and they're going to be set in a specific theme. They're gonna bring back characters from all the stories, and that's the way that has evolved. In terms of an idea, I realize if it's going to be a short story, a standalone, or a series from the get go. What I'm not sure in, I've never had a standalone that transforms into a series. What I do have is concepts that I go like, okay, I can have this standalone and I can have this standalone in the same universe. They're connected, but loosely so. In terms of a series, what does vary is how long it's going to be. So I already had the experience of having to go shorter, and I fully expect to have at least two of the series that I'm outlining for me to go like, okay, it's not going to be 4 books, it's going to be 6 books, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lily?
So to answer, have I ever walked back on a series? I actually had to add books plus walk back on the Coven series. The Coven series is YA urban fantasy that goes into portal fantasy. And initially it was also going to be a standalone. It's also some of my longest books. They're all 100,000 words, almost uniform. And that's very unusual for me and for my writing style. It was supposed to be a standalone. ARC readers, actual readers who bought my publisher, and my mother and my editor at the time all said, well, when's the next book? We need to get this scheduled. What? There's no next book. So I went on and I plotted 5 more books, some of it using stuff that was cut from book 1, because book 1 was 185,000 words. I cut 85,000. Wound up repurposing almost 60,000 of those throughout the series. But the 6th book, which is not released, I had to walk that back, not because there isn't a plot for it, there is, but because the ending that was there was so perfect and absolutely beautiful for her ending her YA life and becoming an adult, that if I were to have written the next book, it would have ruined the magic of it. And one day I still want to write it because I think it's a very cool plot, but I don't even know if I would put it in mass circulation because, yeah, I needed to walk that back. I needed to keep the integrity of the series being YA instead of going, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked very well. And it still kind of hurts a little bit, but I'm glad I did it. Now, the Paige Papillon series, that was always meant to be a series. She came to me, 5 different standalone mysteries with one connecting thread that gets done in the 5th book. And that's actually, again, very unusual for me to not have to walk back or add. Like, she's like, no, this is 5 books. Here are my 5 books. You have them. Let's go. It's like, okay, that's fantastic, but how do you know your story and I don't? It was one of those weird things. I also wanted to do, as S.L. Sinclair, the Santini family. There's going to be 3 books. It's a trilogy. The story first came to me when I was 16. And then the second 2 books came after I wrote the first. And now the world decided, no, we need another trilogy with focusing on this side character. So S.L. Sinclair is now going to have an entire world where the Santinis basically are going to wind up showing up in whatever else I create. But they did not want to stay as a series. So that, that was another one. And I just, as much as I do marketing and heavy marketing and, S.L. Sinclair is right to market, I make sure that my characters are still in control. And sometimes that gives me more plot ideas than my time can handle.
Gotcha. So you're the various worlds that you write in, the ideas come from those worlds, or do you ever come up with an idea like, oh, this would be cool, and then find one of your worlds to put that into?
Well, with the Coven series, I knew it was going to be in that world because I was basing it off the witches I already created in the Paranormal Detective series. With Paige, I didn't know until I got through the chapter of the first book that it was in my world. And I realized, oh, wait, how did he show up? How is this happening? Right? Because I really do feel my characters take me there. So I don't deliberately put things in a story. Sometimes it will. The Coven series, I knew it was based off of those witches. But being in the Angelica Cross world was not intended for Paige. But Paige and her people decided, nope, you're here. And it wound up helping me build the rest of the story and helping me realize what was going to happen in the 5th book, because I didn't have the ending at the time. So putting it in that world gave me her series ending.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you. Let's grab some more comments while we're here. Let's scroll back a little bit. Let's see. JD asking everyone what they're working on. And Vanessa, words are hard. Yes, they are. And JD asking a question: what series have delivered and which ones come up short? Feel free to answer that in the comments if you like. I think that's a fantastic question. Vanessa says readers don't understand that if they're not buying the books, the author may not. Yes, right. If someone doesn't buy book 2, an author, unless they're absolutely self-motivated, may not feel like they can afford to write book 3, right? Or not to do so in a timely manner, right? You've got
Well,
to
it's
write
also
what's
expensive.
Yes.
Paying for books is expensive. You're paying for covers, editing, formatting. Even if you do it on your own, it's still costing you time. So
Absolutely.
that could be time spent on something else that's making money and readers are reading.
Yep, absolutely. No, I agree. Anita, I go with the story dictates, but I tend to expand on the original plan, not shrink a series. Gotcha. And yet, JD noting that Lily did cut an entire novel from her first novel. The act as seeds for several other novels, so that's pretty cool. JD, Ability of Desire, Vanessa, I finished the human cycle because I needed to, and people have responded, but I still need a day job, right, to pay the bills, but I'm very proud of what I did, warts and all. Yeah, agreed. Darn day jobs, but they are useful. JD again, Anita, I feel the story will tell you what's needed and keep sending signs until you write it. Yep. And then JD was like 16 Santinis. That works too, I guess. And then Blood, Flower, Sickness. So let's sing hello to Lily. Okay. So before we get further into our discussion, let me figure something out here. Let's go ahead and check out the Indie Connection from CL Cannon as soon as I find it. Hold on. I've got it right here. There we go. The Indie Connection.
Hey guys, CL Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. The first book I have for you is called The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brianne Randall. Sadie Revelaire has always believed that the curse of 4 heartbreaks that accompanies her magic will be worth the price. But when her grandmother is diagnosed with cancer with only weeks to live, and her first heartbreak, Jake McNeil, returns to town after a decade, her carefully structured life begins to unravel. With the news of their grandmother's impending death, Sadie's estranged twin brother Seth returns to town, bringing with him deeply buried family secrets that threaten to tear Sadie's world apart. Their grandmother has been the backbone of the family for generations, and with her death, Sadie isn't sure she'll have the strength to keep the family and her magic together. As feelings for Jake begin to rekindle, and her grandmother growing sicker by the day, Sadie faces the last of her heartbreaks as she has to decide, is love more important than magic? The second book I have for you is called Perfectly Wicked by Lindsay Lovice. There have always been rumors that something magical is afoot at Wicked Good Apples. Rain during droughts and other inexplicable happenings have long haunted the main orchard. But only Holly Celeste and her family know the truth. The Celestes are just a little wicked. Despite the magical secret ingredient in their cider, the family business is floundering. When Connor Grimm, a charming and nationally beloved paranormal investigator, requests to film an episode of his popular TV show on the mysterious farm, Holly reluctantly accepts. She knows the publicity could be the miracle her family needs. as long as Connor doesn't manage to actually make any paranormal discoveries while he's there. Intent on keeping Connor in the dark and pushing him toward the ghost story believed by the locals, Holly joins him as he interviews eyewitnesses, hunts for old records, and unearths potentially devastating stories from the past. Despite her resolution to dislike him, she begins to fall for the only man who's ever made her feel like strange could be normal. As Connor gets closer to uncovering the real secrets behind the orchard, his and Holly's blooming romance begins to threaten everything they value: Connor's commitment to his career and Holly's commitment to protect her family. The third book I have for you is called The Modern Girl's Guide to Magic by Lindsay Hall. So here's the deal. I'm a magical disaster, a witch from a family of witches, and the only one whose magic blows up in her face, which is why I came up with my rules. Number 1, never get involved with magic. Number 2, if you must get involved, do not enter a competition to win the biggest magical fortune in England. Number 3, and definitely don't fall for Callan Hawthorne, the sexy billionaire mage who you've hated for years. So how the heck did I end up in a situation that promises to break all those rules? It's the only way to save Seaside Spells, my family's magical potion shop. But it's cool. When I go back home to Charming Cove, a village of ancient pubs and foul-mouthed familiars, I will totally ignore Witch Weekly's Sexiest Man of the Year. I'll win the competition, and if I'm lucky, I won't turn myself into a toad in the process. This'll be fine. It'll all be fine. Right? And the last book I have for you is called How Not to Hex a Gentleman by Valia Lind. Kennedy Hellborn knows how to keep a secret. She's been a witch in hiding her whole life. But when she moves to Edinburgh for a study abroad program, the enchanting city seems to have plans of its own, including magically bonding her to 3 unexpected new friends. Bennett McKay never meant to run, literally, into his beautiful neighbor and would do anything to make it up to her. Luckily for him, she needs help with Edinburgh lore, and that's his specialty. Kennedy soon had enough of her gorgeous and frustrating Scottish neighbor because Bennett can't seem to help making a fool of himself as he tries to win over the grumpy beauty. She's got enough to do without him making her already messy life messier. Romance isn't the only magic brewing in the Edinburgh air, and Kennedy needs to focus. But as they spend time researching the city's history, she can't help but be charmed as Bennett's sunny personality slowly cracks through her walls. She's spent her whole life hiding her powers and her heart. He's found out what happens when those you love most leave you. Can they trust each other enough to risk their hearts? Or is the magic of love not strong enough? Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on Indie Connection. Bye.
Thank you so much, CL, for bringing the Indie Connection to us every week. We appreciate that. So let me go put this out to anybody. What are the difficulties with writing a standalone?
Keeping everything together and in a manageable size in one book. Sometimes books evolve into series because you've got too much story to just place into one. Even if it's epic, you may have to make it 2 or 3 epics because you've got too much epicness for one story. So kind of keeping everything together and tied up and in a neat little package to where it doesn't run away on you can be more difficult sometimes than writing just a full series that continues on.
I think that's been one of my issues. The only standalones that I have that aren't connected to any other worlds, I had them as Samantha Calcott. They're republished now, all but one, under S.L. Sinclair. I redid their POV and everything. But while I was writing them, I knew they would only be standalones. They came to me as standalones. They're contemporary BDSM and explicit romances. But the thing is, there's backstory. There are side characters. There's so many things that could get out of control. And so while I'm writing, I have to sit there and say, here's the quirky friends. They belong here. How do I not make them take over and either get a book, which wouldn't have worked for the type of story I was doing, or how do I tamper them down enough so this is just a standalone? But I wound up writing very long books anyway. A lot of people assume lengthy books are for fantasy and literature, but no, us BDSM people, when you have to detail scenes and you have to detail emotions, almost all of them, but the paranormal one, except for my vampires, the Vampire Mistress. They are all 90 to 110,000 words, because these characters, they didn't want to shut up, but they also couldn't be a series. So I had to sit there and decide with my publisher at the time, do I cut or do I publish? And thankfully readers enjoy them. But yeah, the hardest thing is making sure nobody goes off the rails and makes me write another one.
Dan or JD, thoughts?
I think they pretty much summed it up. I think it's more difficult to write a standalone because you have those word constraints that you have to get your story put into, and so there's not a lot of complexity and backstory and side characters and side plots that you can throw in there unless you're super efficient with your prose.
Or like you said earlier, you're going to write an 800-page book, right?
Yeah. I mean, and then you start cutting it, and then you end up cutting out subplots. You end up cutting out stuff that you really wanted to keep in the story to make the story, which detracts from the overall story, I think. So it's hard. I'm not saying it can't be done. A lot of people do it, but probably I can't do it.
Awesome.
For me, a standalone, it's okay. So it's like a short story. A short story, or the way that I like to write short stories, it's almost like a joke with a punchline. So you have the setup, etc. But by the end of it, you have to finish it. And with stories, I do like to leave them open ended. And with a standalone, you might want to leave it open ended. You might want to close a full circle. The thing is that the challenges that you have in a series get compounded in a cover to cover book. And what happens? So if you have something that it dips a bit, or it's a little slower, etc., you're going to feel the lag in the same book versus in a series where so often I see a series that the first book is like, perfect, top shelf, no issues. And then books 2 and 3 suck for X or Y reason. So when you have that happen in a book, the letdown is not going to happen in a series. It's going to happen in the book. So how can you minimize or avoid that completely? That's when editing comes into play. And I do think that with a standalone, you can enjoy those open endings more than with a series. When you have a series, you want that last book to like, okay, dude, I've been here for 6 books. Let's close the show. With a standalone, I would have that flexibility. So it has advantages. It has other challenges. And it's just, you can't lose anyone at any point in the book, and you have to be even more brutal when it comes to editing, I think.
Question. What about series where main characters shift? I'm not just talking about books that are in the same world. A specific series where, science fiction a lot of times, because there's such a vast gulf of time often in stories involving space and things like that. You will find new main characters popping in, and maybe a character might disappear for an entire book or 2 before they come back. How important, or how do you maintain, well, 2 things. How important is a main character to a series for you as a writer, and maybe as a reader too? But 2, how do you handle, we're sort of getting into craft here, how do you handle plucking the characters out of an intervening story and when you put them back in?
So I've done this twice now. My main characters are everything to me. They are my babies. I love them. Yes, I torture them. I'm sorry, but I had to do it twice. In the Paranormal Detective series was one. In book 3, at the end of book 3, Angelica is taken to a point where she has to be removed for more than half of book 4, which is called Right to Silence. And also in Right to Silence, in order to get the full scope, 2 secondary characters that were introduced in book 3 actually have to become main characters for the first half of book 4. And it was very nerve-wracking for me because I knew the fate of those characters. And I was very concerned, will an urban fantasy audience go for this? But my mother was my beta reader. She's like, this has to stay together as one book. I sent it to my publisher, sent it to my editor. They agreed. And it worked out really well, but it was very nerve-wracking. But the second time I had to do it was in the Coven series. Coven series book 4. book 4 I'd always wanted to write anyway as a standalone, but it fit in the series where Harley, my main character, has to go back in time and witness her father's memories and the memories of the dead in order to find a cure. She needs to figure out why a cure isn't working for him. So the entirety of book 4, except for the prologue and the epilogue, it's all of her father and memories of people who aren't even characters. But it fits, it works, it goes into the whole, everything. But when you have a character-driven series, you have to be very careful if you're going to do something like that, because it could rip the reader out of the story. As a writer and as a reader, I knew that if I was going to do this, that these characters in the previous books, whether they were just mentioned or had their own scenes, needed to be lovable, needed to deserve that spotlight. You can't just throw it on a character who's like, meh. It doesn't work that way. But it's not easy. It is not easy.
And my stories are an ensemble cast to begin with, so I'm telling multiple people's point of view throughout the books. So I think it's easier for me. My third book, the first book, the protagonist or main protagonist, is in it, but is not as major a role because he's not playing as major a role in the story at that point. It's. I agree with Lily. It's difficult to maneuver, but fortunately, I'd already set up all of the other characters, so it's been pretty easy to transition into them.
And now, for the next book after this one, is that main character coming back to more prominence? Spoilers for everybody, or you're going to continue sort of the way it is, or you don't know yet?
No, so he was injured most of the second book, and now in the third book he is just not. He's off doing something else, and he's in the book and he's doing stuff, but it's not the focus of the storyline. Where in the first book it was very much he was the focus of the storyline. So yeah, he's still there, he's still doing stuff, but he's not until the very end does he really come back into being kind of core to the story.
Okay. All right.
In my Zelenite, in my Zelenite Mates trilogy, it is a different couple in each book, but they are more than just interconnected standalones. The story continues from one book to the next, so you can't really read them out of order. But it is different main characters in each book. So that was a little weird to write in some aspects because you want, some readers want to hear the same story, same person's story throughout. But in this case, I actually changed who it was and just had a similar secondary characters that continued throughout the stories. So it's really it's tough to work. Some people prefer long series that have the same character all through. Some people kind of like seeing a series of standalones ish. But it's just how you work it, that whether or not it's going to work out or not.
JD, and then I have a follow-up question for everybody, just real quick. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm a character guy. I like character-driven series. I think the most clear example, although I appreciate the writing style of both, would be comparing Dune to Asimov's Foundation trilogy. So Dune, the first 4 books are top shelf. The last 2 books, I don't know what the hell happened there. It just gets a little weird. We have some very strong characters in those books, and then the last 2 books, it just gets weird. The Foundation trilogy, it's more plot driven and it is fascinating, and I will reread it just because I know it's going to get weird, because I'm going to read stuff and I go look at the news and go oh crap. When it comes to a series, again, I'm a character guy, so when I see a character that I love, I want more of that character or those characters. For the human cycle, there are certain characters that appear in all three books, and they get a lot of page time or more page time depending on the book, but they have a significant amount of page time because they serve the purpose, the story, and they are the explorations that I wanted. Main characters are Bill and Lou, which are some supernatural characters whom I enjoyed a lot. Both characters are based off Bill Hicks, who is still my favorite comedian. Daniel, who is a vampire, Nathaniel, who is a human, and then the supporting cast, which includes Captain Jane, which is a vampire pirate captain, which is a fun tongue twister to enjoy. I needed to explore each of these characters differently, and I wanted to give them all the love that I could, and show the evolution of some in the story and the course of the story, and how others may stay constant. Because look at people that you know. There's some people that you know that you look back to when they were 8 years old, and their personality has evolved and they've grown as human beings because they have experience. But they're at the core, they're the same person. And then there's these other people that have, it's like season 5 of Jeffrey, and it's like, what the hell is going on with him this year? And there are elements that are there, but this person changes, and I like to do that with characters in my books. To bash some series that absolutely piss me off, I will focus all my ire on his Dark Materials, and I'll do it for several reasons. First off, the first book is one of the best books I've ever read. Period. New paragraph. Books 2 and 3 missed the mark for several reasons. So you have Lyra Belacqua, which is the main protagonist in the first book. She is compelling. She's super cool. She's interesting. She's feisty. She's female. All ticks a lot of boxes that I really enjoy. And the tone and the plot of the first book is very much more urban fantasy. Book 2, they don't put as much importance on Lyra, and they put importance on another protagonist, Will. And then it's like, dude, what happened to what I loved and enjoyed and was enamored in the first book? And then book 3, you don't have Lyra for a chunk of the book, and she's like out of commission. And I go like, I was just, tossing the book like, fuck it. Just because this character that you made me absolutely love in the first book, you didn't give the love that it deserved. And when I look at my books, the importance of giving everyone their due flowers, their due credit, and their due page time is very important. And if someone doesn't appear in one book, first off, it's intentional. And second off, it's because I think that I wanted to pull the spotlight a bit off them and focus more, because I did a character count, and it's over 100 characters. So it's a lot for people to carry over. And I did want to focus a little bit more in certain books to certain characters. There are some people that will always appear in each of the books, and they will each have their own story arc. And that's something that, have you ever been reading a series and you go like, what happened to this guy who appeared in chapter 12? And they just disappear from the book and the series, and you go like, what the hell happened there? I never want that to happen to me. That's why I'm not a full plotter, but I do keep notes of my character so that I remember that I have a character that has to appear further on. And it's not just like, hey, single serving character. No, dude, no. Give me a conclusion, or at least send them off some way so that I know that they either exited the scene or exited the play.
So thank you for that. Real quick, just everybody, do you ever get character fatigue when you're writing a series? It's like, I'm just so sick of this guy or girl or them.
No, I love my characters. I love them, but and this ties into one of the things JD was just saying. Sometimes if a series is long enough, the characters stop developing. If a character stops developing but the plot develops, there's a problem. And that happened in the Paranormal Detective series. And this is going to be a minor spoiler, but in book 7, there was no more development for them. It was do or die, you have to do this thing. But I knew there was going to be a book 8. So how was I going to get to book 8? So
Right.
in book 7, for their character development, I killed them. I'm not saying they don't come back for book 8, But that was literally the only thing I could think of to do because they weren't developing anymore. It's like, okay, what has not happened to you yet to give you some more development? Oh, death. Perfect.
I think that's when it's time to end the series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no, one of the things that, we talk about stories jumping the shark, and I mean that has to be the end result of everything that you take and just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And for me personally, and this is just me personally, it's my least favorite trope is, the farm boy to, defender of the ultimate evil. I never liked that trope. I always thought it was unrealistic. And so I don't write that particular trope. But it's very common to see somebody that they just develop and develop and develop and develop it. And you're like, really, all the people that have 20 years of experience on him didn't get to that point. It was just this one person. And I know that's kind of a chosen one trope as well, but it's hard to keep developing and do it incrementally enough that you can A, make it interesting, and B, not get to the point where they're just, so incredibly developed that there's nowhere to take it.
Yeah,
It's
with my nowhere
the
books, sorry.
Superman syndrome.
Yeah. With my nowhere books, I'm actually thinking of just finishing off the whole universe for this last book that's being finished this year. The characters have kind of gone to the max where they can go. And they've even evolved into other characters and family members and children and what have you. So I think I've gotten to the point where I can't grow it anymore without making it just extraneous. So I am going to try to wrap up the world as much as I can in this last book that I'm writing with a friend of mine and get that finished off and start something new.
Awesome. Thank you. JD?
for me, for middle grade, I think my favorite books are the ones that give enough page time so that you want to see those characters again. So for Given to Fly, there is like a revolving door of characters, and there are like two constants. One is Fayette Ottstein, who's the owner of Odd Manor, which is the house that you can see on the cover. And the other one is John Rivers. John Rivers is the protagonist, he's the kid. So those are the two constants. And then it's almost like a portal fantasy, and they're going from scene to scene, seeing different little, I just wanted to have a bunch of Cheshire Cats, if that makes sense, to varying degrees. Cheshire Cat is like way amped up in terms of what a personality can be. So it's like, some are a bit more subtle, some are a bit more, human, tender, and some are just out there. For the human cycle, I didn't get tired of anyone, and if I would have gotten tired, I would have just killed them off in the most creative manner as possible. And what did happen was that some people got a reprieve and some didn't make it. And that's just your writing, and I just came to a point where I was like, oh, this one's going to make it, but this one isn't. Oh, that sucks. And then I go have my moment, and then I write the scene. And it is what it is. It's purely emotional. It doesn't make sense. It is the story, and part of you feels like this is where the story is right. How to approach so that you don't have character fatigue is, if you're getting character fatigue, it's because you think that you have to do something, and you're not focusing on enjoying yourself. You're not playing in the sandbox. You're playing within the box. You got to bring the sand into that box, and you got to play. And when you stop playing, you have to ask yourself why that is. Are you overstressing, over worrying about the story? Is the character, does it need a little zhuzh? Does it need something that'll kick something into gear? Or do you need to step away from the story for a week or two so that you can fall in love over again? Some people have series and characters that they're made to make money and to finish a book. How much character evolution does Robert Langdon have? but still, he's compelling on the page. So at some point or another, even though it's manufactured or whatnot, I don't know how close Dan Brown is to Robert. I never feel like he's not having fun with the story. Right. So when you stop having fun, that's when you have to start asking some serious questions.
Agreed. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. As always, you have provided us with some great conversations around standalones and series. And I want to thank everybody out in the audience as well, because now it's time for this week in Indies Go-Dee Minute. Yay! There's no music involved. I wish there was. So Monday at 9. There we go. Monday at 9 Eastern Time. All times are Eastern. A conversation cocktail as Vanessa Junta welcomes Bram Stoker nominee Elle Marie Wood, two of my favorite people. So that will be an exciting conversation. Tuesday at 8, First Time for Everything with Juliet Rose welcomes M.A. Well. Wednesday at 10:30 Eastern Time, special presentation, a live spotlight 2025 series as Joe sits down with Festival Formula founder Katie Bignell to talk about how to get into film festivals. That should be interesting. I'm going to watch that one for sure. And then Friday at 8, to kick off WrestleMania weekend, we have the future main eventers to look at the Working the Indies with Brian Tan and Joe Kahn. So Joe and Brian will be on. If you've watched this show, you know who these people are. So, fun week ahead. All right, it's time for the epilogue. Again, there's no epilogue music, but there should be. All right, so as a reminder for those who may not have played yet, I'm going to ask a series of questions, and last person standing gets to say it's always time to go Indy now, right after we let our panelists tell people where they can find them on the web. So is our panelists ready?
As ready as we will be.
Okay. So first, these are always hard because I always tend towards science fiction questions, and not everybody's a science fiction reader, right? So I'm doing my best to branch out. Which of these Agatha Christie novels does not involve one of her recurring detectives? The Big Four, Crooked House, N or M, The Moving Finger. Lily, we'll start with you.
Oh, I'm going to say The Big Four. I actually haven't read two of these, so I don't know.
Okay. JD?
I am guessing for the same reason, The Big Four.
Okay. Daniel?
I haven't read four of those, so I'm going to go with my default of C.
Okay. AJ?
The Big Four sounds good.
It is actually The Crooked House.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, that's a standalone. So since it's a tie at the moment, I'll go to question 2 for everybody. This should be a fun one as well. Which of these series started in the 20th century, also ended in the 20th century? Dune, The Wheel of Time, the Thrawn Trilogy, or Song of Ice and Fire? Two of these are easy.
I believe that was Dune.
Yeah, Dune.
Okay.
Dune.
Okay.
I think probably Dune as well.
AJ?
She said Dune.
Okay. So technically, no. Dune did have a couple extra books added on by Brian and Kevin Anderson. I know.
That's bullshit.
The
Come on,
Thrawn
there is
Trilogy.
a series.
Yeah, the Thrawn Trilogy is actually the one. So last question. For those, some of you are Stephen King fans. Hold on, I got to put the picture up.
I'm reading The Dark Tower, by the way.
That's good, actually. How many novels only, not short stories, not anything else, novels only, does Randall Flagg or another manifestation of Randall Flagg of him appear? Is it less than 5, more than 12, 8 to 11, or only 2?
8 to 11.
Okay.
I'm
I'm going to say over 12, just so we have something else covered.
I'm gonna say 2.
2. And AJ?
I'll go with Lily. It sounds like a good number.
Okay.
She seems confident.
So it is actually 3, 8 to 11. We're getting low on time, so both of you will be able to do the It's Always Time Going to Now at the end.
Amy, I'll let you do it. I did it last week. Please go ahead. Don't make me do it again.
Okay, that works. AJ, tell people where they can find you on the web.
You can find me at ajmulligan.com, on Amazon. This book that's next to me here, Bronze Goblin, is actually wide, so it is on other venues. Find me on Facebook, sometimes Instagram. I'm kind of out and about, and just, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. Daniel, go ahead.
You can find me on wyvernsairy.com. You can find my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Authors Republic, all over the place. Basically, any place you can buy books, you can buy mine.
Awesome. Thanks for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
It's always a great time.
JD?
If I'm still on a platform, it's going to be at JD Estrada Writer, and I say that because I don't know if I'm going to finish the year on Meta platforms. We shall see how things continue going. They're not going great. I'm most active on Instagram, so enjoy it while that's still alive. I can take this opportunity to say that come Mother's Day, I will be launching my Substack, and I will be more active there, and I will be doing more stuff there just because it doesn't come with the issues of other places. If you're going to buy my books and you want ebooks, go to the Zon just because it's most convenient. I will be going wide further along in the year. If you're going to buy physical, please check out Puerto Rican bookstores. Buy independently. If you buy one and you snap a picture and you tag me, I will make it worth your while. I will send you a personalized letter. I will send you anything. You can get creative and say, do you have a story that you haven't published? And I will put copyright all over it, and then I'll probably publish on Substack or something. But I will make it worth your while. Places like Tazas y Portadas and El Rincón del Lector. These are bookstores in Puerto Rico. I will always support my local bookstores just because it's home, and I love home.
Awesome. Lily?
Thank you guys again for having me here. Anyone can find me as Lily Lucchesi on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Partners in Crime Book Services. We have our own website now where it's very easy for authors to book through or contact us with questions. That's payhip.com/Partners in Crime Book Services. And you can find all of my books and links to them on lilyluchesi.com. And also you can find me on Kickstarter in 11 days. On April 24th, I am launching the Kickstarter for the 10th anniversary edition of Stakeout, which is very cool, and I'm very excited. So please keep up with me on social media for all of the information on that.
Excellent. Our last few comments before we go. Hello. There we go. Hold on. I am terrible at this. All right, here we go. AF says, I knew that. My Christie knowledge is intact. Fantastic. I'm glad someone got it. JD celebrating that. Vanessa telling us all a great panel. It was a great panel. I really enjoyed this. And then Vanessa, that's her. Yep, absolutely. Miss Lishaful, thank you guys. Take care. Take care, Miss Lishaful. And JD rounding us out with big cheers. So I think that we've agreed that AJ Milliken will read us out or lend us out today with our phrase. AJ, take us out.
Of course, you guys all know it's always time to go indie now.
Bye.